guys, I'm Chris with True Fun Entertainment, and if this is the first time you're watching my videos, welcome. I am currently porting Mortal Kombat to the Atari Jaguar. And in the last video we talked about, at the time it was the newly added projectiles. So like Sub-Zero's Ice, Scorpion's Harpoon, Liu Kang's Fireball, all of that was implemented and we showed it off. But at the end of the video I talked about needing to take a step back and redo a lot of code. And basically that was taking things from, I had a series of flags to say whether or not a fighter was walking or blocking or jumping. And I moved that into how fighting games are really implemented, which is using state machines. But first, I want to take a look at some recent footage of the game so you guys can see kind of where we're at with the game. And you'll see we have all the fighters, we've got a basic move set, we've got all the special moves, and we finally have fatalities. So we're going to take a look at that. And there is a noticeable change, which you may have seen in the opening clip. That is, the health bars have definitely changed. They no longer have the names in the health bars, and I had to do that for performance reasons. And I want to break that down as to why I had to make that decision. Believe me, the 12-year-old in me is disappointed because it really bothered me when the Super Nintendo version of Mortal Kombat 2 came out and the names were not in the health bars. And that always bugged me. And I think I understand why now. So we'll take a look at that. But real quick, I want to take a moment to thank the patrons. You guys on Patreon, you continue to inspire me. You give me feedback, and now we're to the point where you guys are helping actually get involved in the game. So we're doing a thing right now where patrons can submit a headshot of themselves, and we're going to put it into the game. So at the bottom of the pit, there's a row of spikes. Then there's 21 spikes. The middle spike already has a head on it. Those other 20 spikes are going to be Patreon supporters that are submitting their headshots. I'm going to bloodify it and put them on a spike. It'll be kind of my nod to the patrons as a way of saying thank you. And if you want to be a part of that, we'd love to have you. So thank you guys. And speaking of Patreon, stay tuned to the end of the video. We're building towards the alpha release. And I've got details on that we'll cover a little bit later on. So here we're looking at some gameplay footage. You can see now in the character select screen, I play the fighter's victory stance whenever you select them. They did this in MK2 and all the following Mortal Kombats, and I always thought it was pretty cool, so I added it to this as well. And here we can see we've got the throne room. You will notice those health bars at the top where we no longer have their name in the health bars. And in the next segment, we're going to talk about why I did that. One other thing that was important to me was you can see Shang Tsung does turn his head as you navigate throughout the level. I always thought that was cool. And it was an easy little checkpoint whenever looking at ports of the arcade to see, does Shang Tsung actually turn his head? And here's our first fatality. And you can see that is not Liu Kang's original fatality. I certainly added a little more flair to this version. Now we're going to cycle through all of the fatalities. We've got Kano's coming up here. All the bloody goodness. Here's Raiden. Zaps their head off. And again, here's Liu Kang. He now uppercuts their head off. It's a little more on brand for Mortal Kombat than the original uppercut, which was kind of lame if you ask me. We got Scorpion's Toasty and the iconic Sub-Zero decapitation. Sonya's Kiss of Death. And that's it. So now we're going to go take a look at what I meant by those health bars changing and why I had to do so in the interest of performance on the game. Okay, so for this demonstration, I have kind of the 3D perspective that we did when I was showing off in the last video, how projectiles work, how there's layers. And the health bars used to have layers as well. So that first sprite layer was the health bar with nothing in it, just the empty health bar, all red. The next layer was the green part, so the actual health on that bar. So the top indicates, you know, this is how you'd see it in the game, and then this kind of 3D perspective shows the depth of layers. So basically what we're facing with already is every frame we're having to draw these two sprites on top of each other. Then to do the names, that was a third layer. So we've got our first sprite, our second sprite, and then our text layer where we can actually write out the text, Liu Kang. And I actually use the text layer for the little medal in the corner. Like if you win, that's actually a part of the sprite font that that you load in. So to do text on screen, it's actually one image that you can slice up for each of the letters that you want to show for text. But you can actually use this to display images as well. So for instance, I never have to use the @ symbol in the game. So I replace the @ symbol with the little medal that shows up if you win. That way, it's just a part of the text, and I don't have to take up additional resources to show a sprite for that as well. So that's kind of what I started with, and this gave us that arcade look and feel for the health bars. But as I got to play in this on real hardware, I noticed that, and you guys on the pre-alpha may have noticed, there is some sprite flicker and some sprite tearing. So like, for instance, if you uppercut someone over the health bars, you would see that green health bar kind of tear and flicker, and that was not ideal. So we can see we've got the 3 layers here. Then if you have, you know, 2 health bars, you're looking at 5 layers. So the background and foreground for each bar, and then the text to be displayed as well. So the reason there is no longer text in the health bar is because I did this. So we now have this, which is a single text layer with all of the data that we need. So instead of doing multiple layers, I was able to flatten everything and minimize those resources. So it's not as pretty, I know, but it's close. And to me, it's more important to nail down the actual gameplay and the character animations and the backgrounds. When working with hardware, you have to kind of figure out the best way to kind of massage everything so that they work best. So this is what I came up with, and it's small here, but you can see right below the top health bar we have, this is our sprite font. So this is an image that has all of the letters that we need to display for the text. But a part of that image is actually the health bar itself. So let me do a zoomed in view here. So here we can see the top row is the font in white, and below that is the font in yellow. Well, I didn't need the letters in yellow, so I replaced those with pieces of the health bar. So in this case, this top version is the full health bar, and it's literally a string of characters. So F, G, 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 ending with H. If you look in the top image, F is that left side of the bar, G is the middle, and then H is that right side with the right edge of the health bar. And then below that is an example of it with some of the health taken out. So essentially, I was able to build a switch statement for all of the percentages of health, from 0 health up to 100%. And I have a string representation for each of those values. So before I was using sprite scaling to where I would dynamically scale the sprite. So it was taking up more resources to calculate that as well. Where with this, it's one layer, it's fast, and there's no more flicker, there's no more sprite tearing. So I did that. And then, like I said in the last video, the next thing I needed to do to increase performance and to increase maintainability of this code was to move to state machines. So in the last video, I showed off this flowchart, and I was just getting started with my concept for moving to state machines. Prior to doing this, like I said, all of the logic was based on flags, which they're just Boolean values in the code, which is just a true or false. So is the fighter walking? Are they jumping? Are they kicking? Are they blocking? And that worked, but it gets really convoluted when you have to deal with, are they jumping and kicking? Are they jumping and they get hit? Or are they ducking and blocking? So all of those combinations come up, and when it's all kind of spaghetti coated together, it becomes a maintenance nightmare. And it just introduced all kinds of issues and bugs, and it actually became a performance hindrance because there's so many if statements that it had to iterate through every single frame. I had to find a way to clean that up. And doing more research, I found that state machines are actually how real fighting games work. And what that is a fighter can only be in one state at one time. So you're no longer having to deal with flags such as is walking, is running, is jumping. It's just, what is the state? What is the state of this fighter? And then they can be idle, they can be running, they can be jumping. But the point is, they can only be in one state at one time, and the code that's being executed for that one state is all that you have to worry about. And that made things way easier to maintain. So I'm going to hop over to Visual Studio and we'll take a look at the code. And you guys can see, so I started with defining what is a state, and I needed a way to isolate the code. And if you look up state machines, there is kind of a basic formula and solution for them. I kind of catered it to my needs, and I found that this worked pretty well. So each state has a name. So am I idle? Am I running? Jumping? It has an enter method. This is a function pointer. So when I enter the state, what happens? So for example, if I'm going from an idle state and I'm entering the walking state, I know that maybe there's some flags that I need to change, like changing their animation, going from that idle state to that walking state. If I'm blocking, well, I need to maybe set a flag that says that they're blocking, or they can't be damaged because they're blocking. Then there's an update, and this is called every frame. So the enter is only called once. That's when we enter the state, we do this. And that allows you to kind of set the stage for that state. Update is called every frame. There's then a sleep. The sleep is used mostly for attacks. So if the player punches, if you just punch normal and you don't hit the fighter, they punch and they go back to idle state. But if you punch and make impact, to kind of give it a little bit of feedback, there is a mild sleep that you don't even really notice, but it hangs on that frame for a little bit longer, and it just kind of adds to the impact. So that sleep allowed me to just kind of add some dramatic effect to the state. And then finally, it's the handle input. So this is going to take in the inputs from the player, the controller state, so that, for example, if we're in a blocking state and I press down, well, then we go to a different state, which is ducking and blocking. So now I'm ducking and blocking. In that handle state, if I'm no longer pressing down, I need to go back to the regular blocking state because I'm no longer ducking. So let's take a look at a implementation of one state. So to keep things kind of simple, we'll take a look at the blocking state. So we said there's the inner state. So when we first enter the blocking state, I'm doing the current frame. The sprite animator is the animator for this current fighter. So I'm setting the current frame to 0 so that we're starting a fresh animation. I'm saying that we are exiting the state is false. That means we're not leaving. We're going to stay here for a while. And then Outtakes is a way of keeping time. So on a NTSC monitor, it's going to have 60 ticks per second. If it's PAL, it'll be 50 ticks per second. So it's a way of keeping time with what's being displayed on the screen. So I'm doing a last ticks, which is just basically refreshing that timer to right now. Then in our blocking update method, again, this is called every frame. So if I'm at this little exclamation point before the statement means not. So if the fighter is not exiting the state, then do this. And this is animating our blocking animation. So it takes in the fighter's blocking frames and animates them on screen. These two flags here, this first one is whether or not it's going forward or backwards as far as how the animation is being played. So in this case, we're playing the animation forward, and this is whether or not we're looping. So when they block, we're not going to loop it. So the forward animation for that is just them holding up their arms to block. So we play that, and they remain there until we're exiting the state. If we are exiting the state, then we fall into here. So we're going to do the same blocking animation, but we're playing it in reverse. And that means their hands are up here blocking, and we're going to reverse it, which is going to bring their hands down, right? And then if we do get back to frame 0, we're done with, we have now exited the blocking state, and we're going to go back to idle. And then idle would be the standard animation where they just stand, in their fighting stance. Now in this case for block, there is no sleep. So this is an empty method. In blocking, for handling the input, and again, this exclamation point is for a not. So if they're not pressing B on the joypad or 8, which is Y, so on the Pro controller, the top row of buttons is 7, 8, 9. So the middle button on top is 8. So if they're not pressing B or 8, then exiting the state is true. And that means that this section of code is going to be executed. Okay? So, and then again, like we said, if they're pressing down, we're going to go to duck blocking because that's a separate state now that everything is broken up into its own state. So you can see this is like 10, 12 lines of code for this state. With everything is broken down, compartmentalized like this, it's way easier to debug. And if I do see something pop up, I can record it and then go through frame by frame and see, okay, fighter 1 was in a punching state and fighter 2 was in a ducking state. So what happened? And then I can really isolate the parts in the code where that bug might be happening. And it makes it way easier to just isolate the bug and figure out what's going on. All right, so up next, I want to show you guys kind of a fun little addition that I've done for this version of Mortal Kombat. I wanted to have something special that could only be found in the Jaguar version. And I also wanted to kind of give a nod to the history of the Jaguar. And, Jaguar never got a copy of Mortal Kombat or a port of Mortal Kombat, but they had a couple fighting games. They had Kasumi Ninja and they had Ultra Vortek that were 2D fighters. So I'm kind of trying to do a nod to those games as well. And I came up with I wanted to have a new palette swap fighter that's just for this version. We did red. I know Ermac is red, but Ermac was not in the original Mortal Kombat. So for the Jaguar, we are going to have a red ninja, and his name's Kasumi. And I've made him he's an undead ninja, so I've made him with like gray skin and the red outfit. And this is, again, something that we did kind of cool with the patrons. I wanted a way to tie in the story of Kasumi Ninja into Mortal Kombat to kind of make it contextually make sense between the two. So I actually reached out to my patrons, and they're giving me their suggestions on what his story is going to be and what the character's ending is going to be if you win with Kasumi. So again, this is kind of a collaborative effort with the patrons, and it's fun. So I want to take a look at, I'm going to show you some footage of Kasumi and his fatality. It's going to have audio, so we're going to watch that first, and then we're going to watch it again without audio, and I can kind of explain things. So let's take a look.
Show no mercy. Kasumi, Sonya. Fight. Kasumi wins. Fight. Finish her. Kasumi wins. Fatality.
Okay, so as you can see, we have our new secret character, Kasumi, that shows up. And you may have heard in the voiceover, he actually says Kasumi. I used AI. There was a tool where you can train a model. So I uploaded all the other voice samples from the game and then had him say Kasumi. So it was pretty cool that we could add new voices to the game. And Kasumi has two special moves. His first is where he can kind of summon fire. So I used parts of the frame where Scorpion's taken his mask off, and it looks like he's kind of waving a flame. And then took inspiration from Melina and got her role in there. So and the flame summon is actually a nod to Rain, who used to have the lightning. And with the fatality, so this is a nod to Angus from Kasumi Ninja, who he used to knock your body off, and then he would headbutt their head as it was coming back down. So I didn't have a headbutt animation for the ninjas, but I did have a roundhouse kick. So I have him uppercut the head off and then do a roundhouse. So it's just kind of a fun little nod. And Kasumi will, as I said, have a full storyline, an intro. He's unlockable and then playable. He's going to have his own ending. So he's a full featured character in the game. And that's pretty much it. That's all I had to show off for today. I did mention earlier for my patrons, we're building towards the alpha release, and we're almost there. I plan on having an alpha release out by the end of the year. I think that'd be a pretty cool Christmas present for you guys. So I'm doing my best to work towards that. Pretty much the only thing that's left is I want to have the tower. So playing the game kind of, I don't have any computer AI in there yet, but it'll be a single player version of the game where the second player just doesn't do anything. And you can play them with the other controller, but the flow of the game is there such that, when you start the single player game, you get the rundown of all the opponents you're going to have. And then as you beat one by one, you work your way up the ladder. So I want to have that in the game, as well as, like I said in a previous video, when you select the fighter, I want to show their little full motion video intro. And then after you beat the tower, there's the little ending. And I thought that would be a nice little bookend for that play session. So I want to get the tower in the alpha version, and then it's just a matter of bug fixing. I've got a few performance issues I want to address, and then just some little things that happen. I've made a lot of improvements on the camera, but I have some other little bugs that need to be cleaned up as well. So once I get all that cleaned up, that alpha version will be in your hands so that you can give me feedback, play it, get some bugs, all that fun stuff. So until next time, see you guys.
Finish him! Sub-Zero wins. Fight!